There are some stats in the Division 2 that aren't discussed much in detail and aren't well understood. One that has seen a massive rise in popularity recently is the subtractive stat, protection from elites. Some say it's busted, some say it's mid, but nobody to my knowledge has really done a great job of explaining why. So today we're embarking on a deep dive on what I call subtractive and divisive stats, which will illuminate why protection from elites is so good. We'll go through definitions of these terms, the value of these terms, and how they help us understand the mechanics of these stats. Then we'll go a bit deeper into protection from elites.
Hey agents, it's Dispatch. Welcome to the channel where we talk about the math, builds, lore, and game design of Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Let's get stuck into it.
I made up the terms subtractive and divisive stats because they are almost the counterparts of additive and multiplicative stats. I probably stole these terms from somebody and don't remember it, so comment down below if you've heard them before. These stats include protection from elites, explosive resistance, hazard protection, stability, reload speed, swap speed, skill haste, and accuracy. In my video about explosive resistance, I called it an additive stat, but I've decided to use new terms to delineate the different mathematical relationships that these stats have. The difference between these two sets of stats is that for additive and multiplicative stats, we want them to increase the actual in-game effect, whereas subtractive and divisive stats, we want them to decrease the effect. We can see this from the stats that I called out. Weapon damage is an additive stat, and amplified damage is a multiplicative stat. In both of these cases, we want the stat to increase the damage effect in game. Stability, on the other hand, is a subtractive stat, and accuracy is a divisive stat. For both of these stats, we want the mechanics of recoil and spread, respectively, to be reduced. So what do I mean by subtractive and divisive? Well, as I said, these are counterparts to additive and multiplicative and refer to the mathematical relationships they have with their mechanics. Subtractive is like additive. It's a subtraction of the base value of the stat. So we add up the percentage value and then subtract that from 1, then multiply that by the mechanic. So for stability, this is easy to see. If we have 50% stability, we multiply the recoil of our weapon by 0.5, so our recoil will be cut in half. And for 100% stability, we will completely remove any vertical recoil. Unfortunately for the Division 2, with stability in this game, as I said, it only affects vertical recoil. Grab the glory days out of your stash and shoot at the wall if you don't believe me. For divisive stats, things get a tiny bit more complicated. Instead of multiplying, we are now going to be dividing. So we'll add up all of our attributes for a stat, then translate it from a percentage into a multiplier. Then we take the base value and divide it by that multiplier. I've explained the translation process in previous videos about damage and such, but basically you take the percentage value, divide it by 100, then add 1. So for our divisive stat, let's see what 100% gets us. With subtractive stats, it completely zeroed out the mechanic that we are trying to reduce. We see that, for example, with accuracy, 100% divided by 100 is 1. Add 1 plus 1 and we get 2. Then we put that in the denominator with 1 in the numerator on top, and blammo, it's 1 divided by 2 or 1/2. Wowza. So 50% stability is giving us the same numerical benefit as 100% accuracy. Damn. Clearly, subtractive stats are better just because of the way math works. Because divisive stats can only deal with the denominator, our spread is never going to be 0. We can see this if we throw on 100% accuracy on any weapon in-game, but it's particularly easy to see with an SMG and Outsider. 100% accuracy still has spread. Even Unwavering with 400% accuracy still has some spread, but it's vastly improved. This relationship also shows that the more small attributes we apply to divisive stats, the less and less efficient they become. Switching back to subtractive stats for a second, and we have the opposite conclusion. Subtractive attributes actually become more efficient the more you put on. Let's do a little thought experiment. Let's say I have 100 health and an elite can do 10 damage to me. So right off the rip, it takes the enemy 10 shots to kill us. The first 13% of protection from elites takes the damage down to 8.7 per shot. Now it takes 11.5 shots to kill. Let's throw on 2 and then 3 more protection from elites mods. Now it takes 13.5 and 16.1 shots to kill, respectively. We're starting to see a trend here. The more we add on, the better the effect is. If we extend it out at 100%, it takes infinite shots to kill us because we are invincible. The scaling value of our protection from elites mods and every other resistance mod increases exponentially the more we put on. But how do we quantify this? We can make a reduction here. Protection from elites is essentially giving us a larger effective health pool. We see through our hits to kill equation above. Higher protection from elites means more hits to kill, which means essentially a bigger effective health pool. Our first protection from elites mod gives us 15% more effective health pool because it takes 15% more shots to kill. The way to quantify this is through our equation. Our effective health pool increases by dividing 1 divided by 1 minus the protection from elites in decimal. Here are the values. For one attribute, we get 13%. That translates to 15%. At 4 is 52% protection from elites, which translates to 108% increase in our effective health pool. And at 80%, which is the cap, our effective health pool is increased by 400%. So at 80%, enemy bullets are only doing 20% damage, which gives us a whopping 5 times the effective health pool. For reference, an armor core gives us 23% armor. The first shield tier gives us 38% more shield health. The especially exciting thing about this is that PFE applies to our shield health, armor, and health. Armor regen and repair skills only apply to our armor. Some other talents only apply to our shield, but PFE applies to all of it. So if we have a standard build with a Crusader shield and 1 armor core and swap 3 of our mods for protection from elites, we're looking at roughly 900,000 armor, 320,000 health, 1.9 million shield health. Total health and armor pool is 3.14 million. Multiply this by 1.64 and you get 5.5 million effective health and armor pool. 4 armor cores on the same build will give us about the same effective health and armor pool. However, a healer build, like someone running Refractor, will do a much greater percentage of heals to our PFE build than to our 4 armor core build. Not to mention the PFE build is just wildly more efficient. In addition, the shield repair on our tier 1 build is going to be about 44,000, which is going to go much farther to repair our shield than the slightly higher 56,000 tier 4 shield will do. Those 3 PFE mods are bringing the same, if not more power than the same number of armor cores. You might think that this doesn't synergize with armor regen, since it's not actually increasing our armor and therefore not increasing the raw value of our repair. However, in reality, since we're taking less damage, that gives our repairs more time to help us, so our repairs are increasing relative to how much damage we're taking, as I showed above. Some have categorized this as simply dying, but slowly. I think it goes beyond this, however, especially in this latest season where enemies can blast us down extremely quickly. PFE can give us crucial time to get to cover, or for the healer in our team to get us heals, or for other repairs to take effect and keep us up. I think this is crucial though. In protracted engagements, you'll likely need to repair some damage, not just mitigate it, because PFE has a hard cap of 80%. But Dispatch, I hear you say, you said explosive resistance was dog water. They're super similar. What gives? Great question. Both of these have some of the same limitations. However, PFE has much more situations to shine in than explosive resistance. Countdown, heroic control points, and the new master mission are all almost completely elites. Explosives, while they can be extremely dangerous, are much easier to mitigate by killing those rare enemies, keeping your distance, and maneuvering to avoid them. Elites are simply more prevalent and less easy to mitigate through other means. Besides, elites with explosives fire them much more frequently than veterans and normal enemies. and they can also just shoot you. Not only do they fire more explosives, they also fire their regular weapons much more often and more accurately than purples and reds. So protection from elites has several scenarios where it applies to all of the damage from every enemy, and it applies to explosions as well. In these scenarios, PFE is best in slot, and I think the math pretty much makes this inarguable. Who cares about a couple of 12% critical damage mods? We could have an extra couple of armor cores of effective health pool. The only caveat I have to this analysis is a big one. We have to remember that non-elites are going to do full damage to us, and all this math goes out the window. Even the scenarios we talked about will have the occasional non-elite, so we need to make sure that we focus those enemies down before they can hurt us. In other activities that have less elites, we can still run these pieces. Just remember that you are in much more danger than you were previously. This stat is incredibly powerful, but that power can lead to complacency if we're not careful. But what about Foundry? Well, taking less damage means less repairs from our Foundry talent, but we're still taking less damage, which is a good thing. At the very least, this is going to help us avoid getting nuked by explosions from elites and big shots from sniper dogs. The heals will be spread out a bit more, but we're still going to heal. It doesn't really synergize, but it doesn't really not synergize either. I'd go as far as to say it would be a good addition to a Foundry build in content that isn't all elites. Alright agents, that's all for this one. We covered subtractive and divisive stats and focused on the viability of protection from elites. The conclusion: it's absolutely busted, and it gets stronger the more we put on until we reach the cap. Let me know what other subtractive and divisive stats you'd like me to discuss in the comments below. I might tackle Aegis and the Defender drone in a future video. I haven't farmed any Aegis, so I gotta tackle that first. Anyways, like the video and subscribe. Spread the word if you enjoyed the math as much as I did. Until next time, agents, this has been Dispatch. Take care out there.